right, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. As always, what we'll do is we'll give an update on what's going on in Lake Havasu City, talk about some hot topics, and then afterwards we'll take any questions that you may have on anything that we discussed or anything that might be on your mind. But before we do that, we are at the Community Center, the Aquatic Center, here in Lake Havasu City. Mike Keene is our Parks and Recreation Director, and he's going to say a few words about the facility that we're in today to get us started. So, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Aquatic and Community Center. Again, as Cal said, my name is Mike Keene. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. A couple things that we have coming up. This Saturday, the Elks is sponsoring an open swim for up to 400 youth. The first 400 that come in the facility, the Elks will take care of the admission for them. So if you know any kids or grandkids or anybody in town, have them come over. It should be a great day. Registration will be starting for our summer programs. All of our aquatics programs, which will include our swim lessons, our swim team, as well as the junior guard program, those will start May 11th. And then all of our summer camp programs registration starts May 17th. And then one more note just on parks in general, the pickleball courts, the 8 new ones will be opening on Monday morning, and then we will shut down the 4 existing courts just temporarily while we put some fencing up around them, and then all 12 of the courts will be open for play. So big improvement up there for sure. So, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you for hosting us, not only this month, but every month that we've had, because it's the biggest room we have. So thank you very much. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with a couple of things going on in the city. We'll start, obviously, with what we have all been going through over the last year, obviously, with the pandemic. The numbers in Lake Havasu City and Mojave County and the state of Arizona really look really good right now. So we're obviously have a downward trend, of COVID-related illness within our community. Our hospital capacity, which is what we've been monitoring this entire time, is available and not at risk anymore. Vaccines and vaccinations are available. They're readily available throughout the community. So if that's of interest to you and your family, you can go to the Mojave County Department of Public Health website. You can find different centers that are offering the vaccines and be able to make appointments or talk to your healthcare providers as it comes to that. Since we last met, the governor had lifted most of the restrictions in the state of Arizona and throughout when it comes to the pandemic response at the state level. That's paved the way for Lake Havasu City to reinstitute our events and our event protocol. So just this last week, we had basically 10 days of really fantastic events within our community, iconic events that we've become known for. So this year, for the first time, we had Cat Fest, which is the big boats. It came here in anticipation of Desert Storm, which we had last weekend. And if you've seen any of the pictures or you went on the street, you would see it was one of the biggest events that we've had with Desert Storm since it began. So really good to see the community out and moving about. That has also paved the way for state parks to open up their protocols. So state parks will be hosting Rockabilly this weekend. That'll be over at Windsor State Park. And that's, again, the return of the event season. We'll then continue through the summer months, and we're already planning all of our fall event lineup. At this point, working with the different promoters and the different venue sites to be able to have all of those pieces come together. Of course, we're continuing to monitor data and pass on information. We still recommend that citizens and visitors follow the recommendations from CDC. Obviously, wash your hands, stay home when you're not feeling well. All of those things that we've been hearing over and over and over again have really helped us get to this position that we are in today. So really good work. Lake Havasu City has also been undertaking a community survey. This is the first time that we've done a community survey, but the reason that we're doing it is we want to get further outreach. So certainly we have lots of opportunities to engage with our citizens in our community at different events, at different meetings, different organizations, coffee with the mayor and city manager, at council meetings, public hearings, all of those different venues, but we also want to reach out to those folks that just continue going all day long. So they don't have the opportunity to engage within their community, but they still have a very valuable opinion. And so we've sent out the survey. It's going to be statistically projectable. There are questions that are very specific to Lake Havasu City, and then there are questions that are of general interest to other communities around the nation. And why that's that way is it allows us to be able to benchmark and see where we are as a community versus other communities, just for nothing more than information, and for us to be able to engage in conversation on how to make the Lake Havasu City of tomorrow better than it is already today. So I went out to the households either by postcard or by mail. Those are the ones that are going to be in the statistically projectable category for that survey. But now the survey is open to all citizens. So if you're interested and have about 15 minutes, we encourage you to take the survey so we can get even a broader respect of what the community is thinking. You can get to the survey by going to lhcaz.gov and /news, I believe, and you'll be able to get right onto the link and be able to take that 15-minute survey and share your feedback about what you think of Lake Havasu City, what do you think about the future, where we're at, and what we're doing. So very exciting to be able to have those pieces. This last week we had a public hearing work session on transit, and we've talked about transit here at this forum for many times over the last couple of years. But the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which helps plan transportation and connectivity within our region, and specifically Lake Havasu City, underwent a transit study in 2018. It was a pretty robust study that took about 14 months or so and engaged various stakeholders throughout the community, citizens at large, users of transit services, so that we could reimagine what transit looks like. So when we talk about transit at a very global level, we think of buses and subways and all of those types of things. What we're talking about in Lake Havasu City is not any of those. When we bring it back to Lake Havasu City and we think of transit, we think of buses that are driving around town that have nobody in them, which we've experienced in the past. We're not talking about any of that either. What we're talking about is how do we get our most vulnerable citizens and our citizens that don't have access to transportation around our community. And so how do we look at that? How do we use technology? And how do we incorporate those aspects so our citizens have options when it comes to transit or the ability to get around our community? And so we went through a variety of different things, and now there's going to be 3 different services offered. When the grant funding changed after the 2010 census, that's when Havasu Area Transit, or HAT, went away. That was the 90 fixed route bus system that was what we all saw with buses driving around town with nobody in them. So that went away, and funding changed after that census came available. So out of the general fund right now, we contribute a little over $250,000 to a transit-based system, and it's called Havasu Mobility. That's a curb-to-curb service that allows citizens to make reservations where we pick them up at their curb and we take them to their doctor's offices or doctor visits and to grocery stores only. Those are the only options that are available on that system, but it doesn't allow for any socialization or quality of life, or go to the movies, or meet up for lunch with friends, go to the senior center. None of those things are included in that system. And so we're able to, with what's been reimagined, we'll have basically two routes that'll be fixed routes, and there'll be flag stops. Basically, if there's nobody there at the stop, flagging them down, then they'll just continue rolling through the route. As fully imagined in 2022, it'll be one route along McCulloch, so basically up and down the downtown corridor, that will take people to and incorporate ASU and Mojave Community College and some of the larger employers that were stakeholders in this process of the study. And then we'll have a north-south route too. That'll take you basically from the south side of town over to the shops at Lake Havasu for folks to get to Walmart and the mall area. Those will be the only 2 fixed systems. And then the other system will be a microtransit, separating the community into 3 different zones, north, central, and a south zone. That will be basically similar to rideshare. If any of you are familiar with rideshare, the app's on your phone. Now, don't get alarmed if you're not a technology person and you don't know what an app is even a thing. You can still call the transit center and get on dispatch, and they'll come pick you up. But through that, you'll be able to have a smaller car, a Ford Edge or similar, come to your home, pick you up, and they'll take you to the destination if it's within the same zone. So if you live on the south side and you might need to go to Bash's' or you might need to go to Dollar General, they'll pick you up at your home, they'll take you to your destination, and then they'll pick you back up at the destination when you call for it and take you back home. Say you live in the south zone and you want to go out to Walmart. Now that's where you would get, microtransit would pick you up at your home. They would take you to the transfer station, which is going to be at Mesquite Park. So it's centrally located within the community. Mesquite Park is where the splash pad is. It's kind of central McCulloch area. You'll then grab that bus that goes north-south, and they'll take you out to the mall. When I say bus, I use that term pretty lightly. It's 14 passengers, so it's pretty small. And when it comes to the finances of this whole thing, it's still about $250,000 of the general fund money will contribute to the system, but we're able to expand it. You might say, well, why in the world, how can that happen? Well, there's grant funding that's available that allows us to take advantage of. For the last several years, we actually have to sign a declaration saying we're not going to take that grant funding. And then what happens is that grant funding is redistributed to other cities and towns with transit within the state of Arizona. So it doesn't, because we don't do it, doesn't mean that our tax liability at the federal level is decreased. It just means that we're supporting other people's transit systems instead of supporting our own transit system. So again, this is a newly imagined transit system, the same cost to taxpayers that we have today with our mobility product. We'll continue on with this product, and we'll be able to offer a lot more services to our community going forward. It is going to be a phased-in approach, so we'll start seeing summer of 2021, so July, August, we'll start seeing the start of it. We won't see the connector route going out to Walmart, that north-south route, until 2022, but that'll come together and be able to offer a full transit system for our community. Some of the timing is through the pandemic, we've had some huge supply chain issues. I'm sure you've experienced it, starting with toilet paper at the beginning. Now we're in building supplies and vehicles. We can't get anything. So we have a bus that council approved that won't even get here until January. So it's just the supply chain is just broken out there and causing havoc for cities, municipalities, obviously for our citizens, for businesses. It's a big challenge out there. So we also had a budget hearing since last time we met. This budget hearing was focused primarily, we've actually had 2 budget hearings since last time we met. So let me go back to March 31st. March 31st, we had a budget hearing, and that budget hearing was to talk about revenues and kind of the overall financial health of the city. The great news is that the overall financial health of the city is fantastic. So we're in a really good position. Those of you that have been with us for quite some time on our Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager tour each month, last year at this time, well, we were on lockdown last year at this time. So last year at this time, plus a month back, last March when we met, we were talking about a structural deficit and worried that we didn't have enough revenues and what that might look like and what we might have to do to shore up the revenue shortfall that we were having. Now, the structural deficit at the time was well known. We knew what we were doing. We had money in the savings account, and so we budgeted to use those monies, but obviously that's just not a sustainable way to run an operation, so we had to look at a more long-term solution. So we looked at those solutions and considered different revenue increases, but obviously through the pandemic and some of the pain and suffering that citizens and businesses were going through and all of the unknowns, that was not palatable, nor was that anything that the council had a will to do, nor should we have. So we have been just pushing forward and saying, okay, what's the future going to look like and how is that going to come together? Meanwhile, while we're doing all of these things, people are visiting Lake Havasu City at a higher rate than we've ever seen before. And businesses were flourishing within our community. And we were able to see record increases in the revenue collections that we already have. So on March 31st, city staff presented council with that financial outlook of the city. We were able to see that the structural deficit is no longer, and for a 5-year outlook, the structural deficit is not there. So no new taxes, no tax increases, none of that needs to occur, and we're still able to provide the same level of services that the community is looking for today. Now, the one caveat that I do need to mention that normally Jess would say, Cal, but don't forget this part, is that that's with the services that we offer today. So if citizens come forward and they say, you know, we want this or we want that, or we need to do with this or we need to do with that, then we obviously would have to find a revenue source for that or some way or mechanism to pay for that. But so that was the budget hearing on March 31st. We then moved into the CIP plan, and that's the capital improvement plan. That was the second budget hearing that we had. And then we'll have our third budget hearing on May 13th, which will be the operations budget. But in the CIP budget, we talked about a variety of different projects that are in there. It's a 5-year plan. And so throughout the 5-year plan, we program different projects that we know need to be done within Lake Havasu City. And this is water, wastewater, infrastructure, roads, parks, all sorts of quality of life, all of that kind of stuff goes into the CIP planning. And we program different things into it and make it all work. The good news about the CIP plan, which is fairly new for Lake Havasu City, is that it's all funded. It's a fully funded CIP, which in the past what we would do is we'd say, okay, these are all of the priorities for the next 5 years. These are the monies that we have for year one of those, and basically whoever gets to council first gets that money and gets their project to move forward. That worked for many years, but it's not as consistent and defined for staff to really understand what they have in a 5-year plan to truly program out the needs of our community to offset any unexpected things from occurring. So a fully funded CIP plan is fantastic. It gives certainty to staff, it gives certainty to council and to citizens that we have a funding mechanism for these 5 years of plans. So last year when we had our conversation, we had the new municipal courthouse in year 4 and 5 programmed in there. We then had an opportunity to purchase 92 Acoma, and when that happened now, you'll see in our CIP plan that we're talking about this year that it's programmed in year 1 and year 2. So that's it moves around, but it all makes sense when we put all of the pieces together. So dollars the same, we just kind of reprogram and replug. So last Sunday, we had a variety of the projects highlighted that we're talking about. We'll go over 4 or 5 of them because that's what the newspaper mentioned, but there's a whole stack of them. And some of them are not so exciting because we don't see them. They're underground. We certainly would know that they weren't working if we turned on our water and water didn't come out, or we flushed it and the water didn't go away. But they're not so fun to talk about because you don't get to see them. So we'll go through just a couple of highlights. One is the bridge lighting. This year we're celebrating Lake Havasu City's 50th anniversary, and the lighting that we have on the bridge is 50 years old, surprisingly. And so it's time to upgrade that lighting technology. And with new technologies, obviously it allows for different colors, different wiring, different technology that we can control the lights at certain times. So right now, if we need to change, as the weather changes in the spring, we have to change the timer 10, 15, 20 times. Now we can just do it really from an app somewhere else. I know, Jess, you're excited about the bridge lighting, so I'll turn over to you to talk a little bit more about the fun part of it, the pizzazz, if you will.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor, and good morning, everybody. Yes, the bridge lighting is something that's important. You talked about the infrastructure that's at the bridge and the 50-year-old wiring and so forth, but it's the nucleus of Lake Havasu City, right, as far as tourism goes. So we're trying to do something really special with the bridge lighting. Something that'll allow for different events, whether it's like Domestic Violence Awareness Month or the 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, those types of things, where we can do something with the bridge and light it up and make it look really, really special.
Yeah, so that project, we're hopeful that we can launch that by October when we do our official 50th anniversary celebration. Another project that was highlighted is the Downtown Catalyst project, and we've been talking about this project for quite some time. This is the project that was envisioned during the Vision 2020 process through the America's Best Communities competition. Lake Havasu City was a $2 million grand prize winner. As it's discussed right now in our CIP budget, the $1 million that's budgeted for this is actually those winnings. But in municipal budgeting, you have to budget for it as a full spending plan, but those are the winnings or the proceeds that'll be there. So the Downtown Catalyst project is the corner of Quario and McCulloch. The city purchased that lot during that process, during the America's Best Community competition, and as envisioned, it was going to be a public-private partnership. So the private part was going to be some sort of a development. At the time, it was talked about really high-density uses, restaurants, eateries, shops, coffee shops, those types of things. And then the public spot would be like a downtown gathering space that we'd be able to enjoy. And many events use that as a downtown gathering space today on an event-by-event basis. But it would be pretty awkward just to go down there with your lawn chairs one day without an event and just sit in this grass field. So no one does that. But we would take these monies and we would engage the original ABC committee. We'd engage stakeholders, and then we'd also engage citizens and take that $1 million proceeds and make that a downtown gathering place for today, that in the future we can still have private development come in and partner when they're ready. So basically the thought behind it is, why wait on the public side? Because the public is waiting and they want to use that area. The private side, let's make sure it's the right partner. And so the reason that we don't have a partner right now on the private side is because we haven't had the right partner come by. And if it's going to be a true catalyst project and it's going to be the shining star of our downtown and the remaking of our downtown, it needs to be the right private partner. And so when that comes forward, we stand ready to do that. But we thought, let's use the proceeds to be able to get that park going so citizens can use it on an everyday basis instead of an event-by-event basis. It also will allow us to give that area an identity. Right now, no one really knows what to call it. So they call it the lot, they call it Springbrook McAndrew, they call it the city lot, they call it Aquario, they call it McCulloch. We don't even know what you're talking about. If you go to Google and Google any of those things, nobody knows what that is. So it'll give the opportunity for an identity there. And again, those are the proceed dollars from the winnings. The next one is also on McCulloch. It's the pavement on McCulloch. I'll turn it over to Jess to talk about that. It's a really exciting project.
Yeah, it really is. So if you look at the downtown area from McCulloch, from Smoke Tree to Acoma, there's a lot of crack sealing. There's a lot of black lines throughout the pavement and so forth. We have some really old infrastructure in that area as well too. So exactly right. So what we're trying to do is take a close look at that area and see what we can do to improve the downtown area. And we start looking at pavement improvements, but we also have to be respectful of the businesses in that area too. So we have to do it piece by piece. But the idea there is to do something in a time that works well for everybody. And we have the 50th anniversary coming up for the celebration of the dedication of the London Bridge. That's coming up. So with some downtown events that are occurring. So we have to find a space here in late fall where we can basically called mill and fill, which is replace the top layer of the road surface and then replace that with a new road surface. So that'll be coming up here in late fall. We were trying to do it maybe like in October time frame, but again, with the celebration of the dedication of the London Bridge, that'll change our plans a little bit. But late fall, we'll be redoing the downtown area as far as the road surface and putting something in that's permanent and looks nice and that's going to be sustainable for a long period of time.
We talk about the roads also, the parking lots behind the businesses too, so that's full.
No, so that's different. So the parking lots, so I'm sorry, sir. The question that for those on the camera is, are we talking about also the parking lots in the back areas? So right now, what we're talking about, the city-owned property, which is the street, McCulloch from Smoke Tree to Acoma, the back parking lot areas, those are privately held.
Those are owned by the businesses.
Correct. Those are owned by the businesses. Yeah.
Is there any pressure on the landlords to keep up their properties? I mean, I have a hard time driving my Razor back there.
Mm-hmm. You know, again, so people at home can hear us. It's like, yeah, those parking lots are in bad condition, and absolutely, we've had some conversations about how to make that work, but there's no immediate plans. From the city's perspective, there's no plans whatsoever, but there are conversations that do occur for something to happen in those parking lots. But you're right, they're in bad condition.
Yeah, the good news about some of those private investments in a downtown region, or really in any region, is when the public comes in and invests the money on like the Downtown Catalyst project, there is evidence that shows what the returns are on private investment as well. Likewise with the roadway, you don't want to be the one that sticks out, and so that encourages those private folks to be able to take care of their assets and have continuity in those backyard parking areas. So the next project, Mr. Keene talked about a little bit when he welcomed us this morning, but the Pickleball Courts has been a long time project that has been championed by many of our citizens. This is out at Dixant Park, and that project is coming to completion. The funny thing is we talk about pickleball as we say it's a pickleball courts. That's just a small, small piece of what really happened out at Dixant Park. So Dixant Park originally, it's a park in the northern area of our city. It was the Little League park, and that's where Little League still plays today. It's a beautiful Little League field, and our citizens have been using it, but they've been having to park on dirt and over curbs and along the driveway that's not very wide, and there's just no parking out there. So this park, even before pickleball was a part of this park, had inadequate parking, inadequate sidewalks, inadequate lighting, and we were able to accomplish some of those things during this process. So the parking lot has been expanded. There's still dirt parking there, but at least it's more accessible and more user-friendly, but there is expanded parking facilities, and then of course the new pickleball courts that will have the ground breaking. They'll be done in the next couple of weeks, but we'll actually have the official dedication in the fall when the weather gets better for everyone to be out there and a little bit cooler. So when we talk about that, I just want to make sure that we're not talking just about that dollar amount for pickleball courts. It was lots of park improvements, and also the Pickleball Association, which we're very grateful for, raised over $100,000 that they contributed to the improvement, specifically for the pickleball portion of that park area. I mentioned it a few minutes ago about the courthouse and that we had that opportunity to purchase 92 Acoma. The courthouse, just by a historical perspective, a lot of times people are like, well, we have a courthouse. Why do we need a new courthouse? What does that mean? And so the reason we need a courthouse is back about 26 years ago, Lake Havasu City joined with Mojave County and had a consolidated court system. So consolidated means we have the Superior Court, the Justice Court, and the Municipal Court. So 3 different courts operate out of the facility that is currently out at College Drive. We ran out of space out there. So that building only has so much space that we can have, and so we ran out of space. So we deconsolidated effective August 31st of 2019. So basically we unraveled what we are and we deconsolidated in place, and we are now a tenant of the county at that courthouse. And we're a tenant of a landlord that wants us out because they need some space so that they can grow too. So obviously with increased populations, there's increased demand on the court system, and we need space to be able to do that. And so it was in our CIP plan. We knew that was a priority of our community. We looked at a variety of options, starting with could we expand the College Drive in partnership with the county? Obviously that would make the most sense. We're there, it works, we know each other. Could that happen? And that wasn't an opportunity that presented itself. The land out there is pretty tight. In order to build, we also need more parking to obviously accommodate that. And it just wasn't feasible for us. So we then looked at, we have land on the City Hall complex. We looked at maybe building our own. What does it look like to build on the land we already have? That might be a prudent decision. Obviously with the cost of building, that's not such a great idea at this point. We looked at maybe renting or leasing other facilities in vacant areas of our community that might make sense for it. The rents and the long-term sustainability just didn't make financial sense. And then we had the opportunity when the owners of 92 Acoma were getting ready to retire and put their building up for sale, and it was less than what we already had budgeted in our CIP to do the courthouse. So we had about $7.5 million budgeted for the courthouse in the CIP. We were able to purchase 92 Acoma, and we'll be able to do the tenant improvements and still save $3 million or so from that original budget. So it really is fantastic. The other thing about the courthouse is a lot of people think it's just the court and just bad people go there. But the court's so much more than that. So they do so much more with orders of protection, records data, management, and then they also have to have the prosecutors there. And the prosecutors are located at the City Hall complex in the city attorney's office. They're now able just to walk across the parking lot and be at court and be much more efficient. We'll also be able to have shared spaces. So if they need conference spaces, they can come over to City Hall and use some of those conference spaces. And likewise, if City Hall needs conference spaces, they can go to the courthouse. We also have been using the police training room for our council chambers for 25 years. It's been temporary. We're now going to go in partnership with the court, and we'll use a courtroom for the council chambers. So it'll still be a room that's multi-purpose, so it'll purpose as a courtroom, and it also can purpose as a city council chambers when necessary. So again, not trying to build exorbitant things that are only going to be used 3 or 4 times a month. We want to be able to use it and have that shared space. But our council chambers, especially on items that are of general interest to many citizens, the council chambers can get pretty full pretty quick. And so this will allow for a little bit more space and hopefully ease of use. So coming up, Jess has been working with some firms to bring what that tenant improvement looks like. So I'll turn it over to you, Jess, to talk a little bit about what you're doing in that regard.
Yeah, for next steps. And I think it's important to understand that. So we're growing. Lake Havasu City is growing. If you look out in the community where there's more traffic, there's more lines, there's more houses being built, the market is where it's at. So this move in terms of the courthouse and the separation and Havasu having its own city court makes a lot of sense, not just because where we're at. And from an outside perspective, it's kind of weird to think that the judge has to schedule time to have a courtroom to make things happen. That's literally where we're at. We have multiple judges in the courthouse, and there's not enough time to have court for all those judges and all the cases and all the information that flows through that area. So we're growing, and this will allow us to do just that in terms of growing at our own pace. Probably looking at the second meeting in May, so the 4th Tuesday coming up in May, we'll be looking at a contract that will go before council, and that contract itself will look at the design services for the new courthouse. So 92 Acoma, the old Havasu Fitness building that's located there. We'll take a look at what we can do to design courtrooms and space and maximize the square footage of that area, not just for the court needs today, but for the future court needs. Judge Kalali does a great job with the court that's there now. There's a veterans treatment court that's located in that building, in that space, a youth court, and we're all talking about the future specialty courts that might operate out of that same building too. So do we talk about trying to identify specifics in terms of helping people at that time so they're not coming back into the court over and over and over again, and look at the recidivism rate that occurs there. But how do we help that person, that individual, so that they're not returning to the court environment? We do that for veterans. We do that for the youth, but maybe it's mental health is an issue. Drugs are an issue, and those types of things will also occur at that same space.
Yeah, and courts, what we think about at courts, we think of like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. They're open 7 days a week, so they have to arraign folks in 24 hours by state law. So they're 7 days a week. They're operating this courthouse, and it's a pretty busy place when it comes to that. So we'll keep you posted on how all that comes together. We're hoping that we could get that new facility open in the next 12 to 18 months. I know that might be a bit aggressive, but
closer to the 18.
Yeah, but if we put it out there, maybe magically things will happen. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to put that in the universe that we'll be in there soon. So we're honored today to have Senator Borelli with us. He's been fighting a good fight for us down at the legislature. So welcome, Senator. If you want to come up and share with us your experience. Senator Borelli and Representative Cobb and Representative Biasucci really have turned into this power team for our legislative district, and we're so proud of the work and glad to have you with us. So,
morning, thank you. You said you were just inviting me for coffee. Thank you. Now you're going to give me a speaking part. Great.
That's your favorite part. Yeah.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be back here in Lake Havasu, away from the state of Maricopa, which I call the occupied territory, because they're completely nuts over there, and it's good to be grounded back home and a little bit at least for the weekend. But let me see, what kind of things? Well, Meredith, I'm sure you have a few questions that you want me to throw you under a bus for. So.
Oh, I have some for you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, if you have any questions, what's going on? Right now we're going through the budget process. The Senate, we've pretty much got our budget, our version ready. The House is balking and doing all kinds of. That's what the House does. They're the opposition, so they always have to oppose everything we, us senior members do. I call the upper chamber now because now I'm in the Senate. But that's just the normal process of fighting with the House and the Senate, and of course with the governor. And The House is proposing a lot of massive tax cuts, which is good, but yet they don't want to spend any money for roads and infrastructure and things like that. And of course, here in the Senate, we have tax cuts in our plan, and we have money for infrastructure. I mean, for example, the veterans home that I've been pushing for the last 9 years, we're this close, and from what I understand, the governor and even the House has agreed to the $25 million match that on the state we have to put up for the veterans home. So what we do is we put up, it's 35%, which is $25 million for the building costs, and the feds come up with the other 65% for building costs, and then of course the ongoing funding would be coming actually from the veteran that has a benefit. And we're not talking about homeless shelter. We're talking about that veteran that has no family, he's indigent, and you know, this is basically, it's assisted living. So this is what we're talking about. I'm pushing for a 100-bed facility. I'm hoping it's going to be in Lake Havasu. Kingman is the other candidate, but you know, I'm trying to whatever influence I can on the Arizona Department of Veteran Services. Normally, we're in the Milcon project. The state, the VA identified five different counties for veterans home years ago. And of course, it's in the Milcon military construction list. But so actually Mojave County is the last one in the state that has to be done. So we have one in Yuma, Tucson, Phoenix, Flagstaff, and then of course Mojave County is the last one on the list. So normally the Milcon project is way down on priority list, but since the last year's budget was approved, there's actually money, federal monies that are in there existing now that it expires in September of 22. So that the money is there from the federal government side. So we have the state legislatures can put up our money, and of course, how this works. You have to have somebody who's going to put up the land first. So we have a private donor that's going to donate the land, so there's no extra costs. And then the state comes in, and then the federal government comes in with a building cost. Of course, the ongoing funding comes from the veterans benefit himself. Now, this is going to employ about 100 people, because we have to have medical staff, and then, of course, I call the cooks, bakers, and candlestick makers because of the logistics side of things. And of course, you have to buy local. So this is one of the things that I've been pushing for the last 9 years, and we're finally going to get there. So somebody knock on some wood somewhere and make sure that this goes on without a hitch. You know, where Leo and I are pushing more, we're still trying to squeeze that lemon as much as we can for more money for Highway 95 and pushing ADOT to keep that in a 5-year plan, but try to expedite that to get some help for Highway 95 in Havasu and also in Bullhead. And then of course the bridge. We're working on, we're trying to, you know, leverage as much as we possibly can to get to that second bridge, because I keep saying this is a public safety purpose. And there is a nexus because it's state land, and so they can't complain that, well, this is all private land. No, it's state land, so you guys are obligated to do something. So I'm using every little angle I can to try to squeeze that. Let me see, what else is there? Of course, the Second Amendment bill got passed and signed into law, and Leo did an outstanding job on that. And you know, it's kind of funny, the background on that, when Leo says we got to do something, we know the Biden administration is going to go crazy on the Second Amendment, so we got to come up with a solution. I'm like, all right, I'm listening. What's your idea? He says, well, you know, California passed a sanctuary state law for illegal immigration. I said, okay. He says, so the state legislature passed a law that says they can't use any resources, city, state, county resources to enforce any immigration law. So, and Jerry Brown signed it into law. Well, obviously it got challenged in court. Well, the Ninth Circuit upheld it. I says, okay, so I'm listening. He goes, well, I think we should just strip out anything that has references to immigration, the Border Patrol, anything like that, and just put in the Second Amendment, and obviously it conforms to the 10th Amendment. Let's put it in there. I says, that's brilliant. You're learning well, my son. So it passed out of the House, and it got over to the Senate, and of course then I hear the arguments from the other side that, you know, federal law trumps state law, and which I have to break out the Constitution and say you need to read your Constitution. And well, but federal law trumps state law. I said, well, really, how's that marijuana thing working out for you? Because it's, you know, feds are still illegal federally. So anyway, governor signed it into law. Great win and champion for the Constitution. And of course, then he had that one bill for sex trafficking and you know, pornography, that kind of thing. That puts a higher sentence on somebody that's actually profiting off of that through pornography and everything else. So we've got some good wins for our district, and we're making a name for ourselves in Phoenix, very strong name, which is good because it takes building coalitions and partnerships if we're going to get anything accomplished in Phoenix. I've said this a bunch of times, but there's over 30 legislators that represent Maricopa County's interests. Western Arizona, there's just 3 of us. And if we don't stick together and work together as a team, we're not going to get anything accomplished. But so far that teamwork has been working. Gina Cobb and Leo are great teammates. I don't consider them seatmates. We're teammates, so this is how we get it done. We don't always agree on everything, but when they don't agree with me, that just means they're wrong. But if I agree with them, we both will be wrong. Hey. But I'm just kidding. They're great people. Yes, sir. Okay, that's
You can recap the question for those on TV.
He asked, what's my position on sine die, which means that's when we adjourn the session, the legislative session. Not to get into too much in the weeds, but we had two Senate members that have a little bit of a conflict with each other on some of their bills not moving. One's a chairman of a committee, and the other, her bills didn't get moving. So she's using that argument to try to slow things down to move her own agenda. Yes. So, and I really respect Kelly Townsend, but I disagree with her strategy on this, and what she's doing is really creating more of a rift than it is to fix. We are in our normal budget process, so it's a slow process anyway. It takes a while to get both chambers, the House and the Senate, and the governor to agree on a budget. Of course, once you get the budget, then boom, you got to do it. But that technically is our only constitutional requirement, is passing a budget. All the other legislation and everything, everybody just calls that fluff. Hopefully you get some things accomplished, but that's not what we're constitutionally required to do. The audit is going on for the election in Maricopa County, so we're still doing that. It's going to take a long process. There are bills in the House that Kelly Townsend and other members have that they're just sitting there waiting to get voted on, but we're trying to move things slowly because you just can't pass everybody's bills and then they go, well, my bills are done and I'm out of here. So we need to keep them around for the budget. We need to keep everybody around to make sure that they vote on somebody else's bills too, and they don't become selfish at their own agenda. So this is the process. This is that time of the season where just sitting around, what is it, idle hands make the devil's playground or whatever. But for us to be in a rush to sine die is a complete myth. It's misinformation, and it's not nowhere even close to the truth. We do not want to sine die until after the audit is completed. But people don't understand this, and this is where the confusion comes in. Once the audit is completed, those guys are done doing their thing. They have to go back to their place, and they're going to write up a report. That report could take another 50 days. I mean, they're still doing the audit. We're only 5 days into the audit. There's been a lot of roadblocks, been throwing us in court on these things and trying to stop the audit, which is amazing. I don't know why they're going to so much effort and so much expense to try to prove that we found nothing. So I mean, it's pretty obvious. So, but Kelly's position is we shouldn't do anything until after we get the report, so that way we know what we need to do to fix. Well, you got to do the math on that. We have to do the budget by the 30th of June. The calendar doesn't change just because you want it to. The numbers don't change. So there's a timeline, but I keep telling everybody, anticipate the worst, what we expect that's the results of the audit. Anticipate that and write your legislation to conform to that, and let's deal with that. Well, people don't listen to me until the last minute, and they kind of go, well, we should have listened to Sonny and had some of this stuff prepared. But that's okay. We have other mechanisms to try to get things done even before the report is completed. So, and these are things that should be done anyway. On tightening up security.
I think your time's up.
My time's up.
Yeah, I think that's how that works.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
But
did you have a question as well?
But anyway, where was I at? But these are election reform bills that we need to get done anyway. We need to tighten up the mail-in ballot system. we're coming up with a solution for anti-counterfeiting measures of a ballot itself. There's 3 countermeasures on this one ballot we have. It's a sample that if you scan it, if it doesn't sound off a sensor, then that ballot is suspect. But once you put it under a black light, you can tell if it's counterfeited or not. It's kind of like taking a $50 bill, holding it up, and you can see the engraving on those ballots with special paper. So this is the kind of things we're already moving on now. The permanent early voting list, we're trying to clean that up. There's a lot of misinformation on that, which the PEVL, permanent early voting list. What the bill says is if you haven't voted in the last 4 elections, that means 2 primaries, 2 generals, and we amended it to even include municipal elections. So if you haven't voted at all in the last 4 years, not even once, you're going to get a notification from the county that says, hey, you're on PEVL. Do you still want to be on PEVL because you haven't voted in the last 4 years? Well, if you don't respond, it means you either moved, or you're dead, or you're a ghost. You never existed. And we suspect there's a lot of ghosts in Phoenix. But this is the kind of things we're trying to get done. And that's where the Townsend rift became, because she wants her bills heard and she took a stance. But anyway, I think it's a lousy strategy, but we're working around it. But we're not. Bottom line is we're not going to sign and die anytime soon. Yes, sir.
So thank you for having our back. You're over there. Appreciate it. And,
Thanks for having my back, because let me tell you.
Here's a mic for you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Because I've got a lot of people. Yeah.
So the question I have is, did the governor already send the additional troops to the border? And have you seen any difference at all since he's done that?
Well, you're right. They just last week they just announced the emergency to deploy. The Guard personnel are down there on logistics support. They're there to back up and basically relieve the law enforcement from some of the logistics requirements that they have to do, so that way they can get out there and actually do their law enforcement. We also have the Border Security Strike Force, which is a counter-drug operation through Border Security Strike Force, but those are also Guard personnel. But that's counter-drug operation. That's been an ongoing thing. We're actually putting more money into that. And of course, now those Guard troops are going to be down there being deployed, and this way the sheriffs can go out there and do the apprehensions and all that stuff. But that's moving along, and it's amazing how I was talking to some of those guys from DEA that have been around for a long time, and even the Border Patrol and even local law enforcement that they retired, and they said, back in the early 90s, we didn't have this kind of a problem until California built that wall along the border by San Diego. And I go, what? Because about in the mid-90s, all of a sudden we saw this major influx of illegals coming across because of California's wall. And I go, well, you can blame me for that, because that was Operation Gatekeeper, and I'm the one who set that operation up. But, well, thanks a lot, Sonny. But anyway, yeah, we're getting some it's really a shame when the city of Tucson, I think it's appalling that the city of Tucson, the mayor and council voted to use taxpayer money, city money, to house illegals that came across in hotels. Now, folks, there's a big misunderstanding here that these are all asylum seekers, that they're all here to find a better way of life, and we have the intel, we have the evidence, we have pictures of these drug cartels they're all camouflage uniforms, they're carrying AK-47s, and they got backpacks on their back, and that's all dope. These are drug peddlers. And what they'll do is they'll send human trafficking up as the decoy, and then once you pull off resources for those folks, the illegal immigration type, it pulls them off, and they can't go after the drug guys. And they know that. And let me tell you, you can't get anything across that border without the permission of the cartels. They're more powerful than the Mexican government. So these guys are experts at smuggling. Now, it's not just the drugs. It's not just somebody coming across looking for a better way of life. More than 50% are OTM other than Mexican. We have sex trafficking going on down there. We've had reports. You're paying the drug cartels to come across through Mexico and be escorted and get across the border. And en route, hey, we're gonna abuse your wife and child, and what are you gonna do about it? Who are you gonna call? This is the scum of the earth is what's going on down there. And what's really troubling is my Democrat colleagues pretty much enable that because they don't want to step up to the plate, come into the room, and sit down and and come up with solutions. I threw the gauntlet down and challenged them to come and meet with me and have a meeting in one of the conference rooms. Not one of them showed up. Not one. Not one. So they tells me they have a different agenda.
Police in Tucson, who's a big open border guy, and Biden just appointed him to some crazy.
Right. It's a problem. Right. Anyway, yes. Yes, sir.
One second, we'll get a microphone on you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank all three of you for the fine job you're doing representing us and running the city. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you hear me now? On the immigration issue, I have a sister that lives in Ahwatukee, and I was talking to her last night, and she told me just down the street from her, there's 3 hotels that the government has brought in illegal immigrants, and they're staying in these hotels, they're swimming in the pool, they have happy hour, and about 2 blocks away from that, we have homeless veterans in tents. Now I believe there's a couple of states that the governor has come out and said we are not going to allow the government to bring illegal immigrants into our state, and I don't know where that's at. But my question really is for the mayor and the city manager is, do we have a contingency plan for if we have buses rolling into town with illegal immigrants? All that's going to do is drive down wages for guys that work for me, and because I can hire a labor for $2 an hour less because that's just the way it is. So the question is, do we have a contingency plan for if this was to happen? Thank you.
That's a question for the mayor.
Yeah, we do have contingency plans. Our policies that we have in Lake Havasu City are such that that won't be happening here. So Tucson, as some of the discussion has been, is an example where they have a mayor and a council that have supportive policies to harbor immigrants that come here illegally. We don't have those policies in Lake Havasu City. We also don't have space, resources, hotels. We don't have any of those situations, and they do have to interface with local government before they can relocate anyone within our communities, and that's not the will of our citizens, and it's not something that we are going to have to worry about here in Lake Havasu City.
Correct.
And plus, we're getting into vacation season, so pretty much everybody's put their reservations in because we need to make room for boaters, right?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Senator Burley, thank you so much.
I had suggested a solution: put them on a bus and send them to California. It's cheaper. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator
Thank you very
Burley.
much.
I appreciate your leadership. Yeah, you're rocking it down there, and it's funny. He wasn't wanting to toot his own horn, but what he was saying with that power team is Senator Burley is the majority whip. So he whips up all the votes that are coming for the majority policies. We have Representative Biasucci, who is the majority whip in the House, again, whipping up those votes. And then we have Regina Cobb, who controls the checkbook. She's the appropriations chair. So Mojave County, La Paz County, well represented, and they really do listen to the needs of our community. A couple of things at the state level that impact Lake Havasu City that we've been talking about a few times from a legislative perspective is the vacation rental bill. We are hopeful this year we would be able to get something through that would enable cities and towns to be able to have some local control in that front. We got to a stalemate and that bill died, so we were not successful. Lake Havasu City is looking for the ability to have vacation rentals register with the city, have a 24-hour contact, identify who they are so that we can be good neighbors to each other. Vacation rentals have been a thing in Lake Havasu City forever. They're part of the product mix. We're not looking to get rid of them. We just need to be able to have a way to manage them so that our citizens that live next door to those homes can live peacefully and not have those issues. Unfortunately, some of our other neighboring communities want much more restrictive vacation rental policies, which is why we're at a stalemate and why the bill died. But our representation did fight the good fight for us, and next year we'll come back with hopefully a bill led by us that is just the real basics, and then let everyone else fight about the stuff that's going to make things not happen. So we need to make some positive change to make things occur. And then is, yes, sir.
One second, sir. We'll get your microphone on you.
With summer coming up, I got an Airbnb in my neighborhood. They don't have any facilities for parking or anything else. They block the streets. You know, the police have come out a couple times and told me you can't park there. The other day I found, you know, bags of In-N-Out trash in my driveway. And it's just, what can we do about that?
Yeah, no, your story is not unlike many, many different stories we hear from citizens in our community, and that's why we're looking to get state law changed. And so we had we had an ordinance in Lake Havasu City that was adopted in 2014 that allowed us to address the management concerns of neighborhoods and peacefully coexist, and it worked really fantastic for about 2 years until 2016. The state changed the law and it had a presumption, or what is the
Presumptive?
Yeah, presumptive, or preempted us, the city, from doing anything. So we had to actually repeal our ordinance. But with what we're proposing, if we can get state law to change, we'll be able to do good neighbor brochures in the homes. We'll be able to interface and let the renters know exactly what the expectations of the neighborhood are. We just recently at the local level adopted an ordinance for noise. We updated the sound ordinance to address the C decibel?
C-scale.
C-scale, which is like that thumping, the bass that you hear. And so we're doing everything we can on our front, but what the issue you're having with parking and blocking of the roadways, trash in your front yard, there isn't anything that we can do from a legal perspective on those things until we get state law changed.
And if I can, just real
please.
briefly too. So what we had is a process in place in Lake Havasu City that worked, and we had the Airbnb, VRBO, and the giants come in and have conversations with the state perspective and said, state senators, state representatives, let's pass a bill. And then they literally passed a bill that says cities cannot regulate short-term rentals. So it took all that away. And now we're working now to add some tools back to that language that says, okay, cities, you can do this and you can do that. It's not enough. We're hoping for some relief in the legislative session this year. We didn't get it, but we're again, going to be fighting hard to get some relief in next session.
Well, if they're short-term rentals, they're like a hotel. Mm-hmm. Why don't they have to have
They
fire
should be a
sprinklers and all the safety stuff that a hotel has to have?
We fought all of those fights. Yeah, your talking point, you must have been reading my playbook. Yeah, we've gone through all of those things. And they should be registered at the county health department, have pool inspections and health inspections and sprinklers. I mean, we agree, but they don't in state law.
It's a business. When I built my building in California for my shop, I had a 4,000 square foot building. I'd have 20 parking spots. Mm-hmm. You should have enough parking of that so you don't, like I said, the police have come and made a move, but our street narrows, so when they park in the street with their boat, you have to stop and wait for the car to go by before you can go by.
Yeah. No, we sympathize with you, and that's why we've been pushing so hard to have a short-term rental bill that gives us some local control again.
Okay.
So. A couple other things, and then we'll get to the best part of this is all of your questions. A few other things we're working on. I mentioned the budget already. Our operations budget will be on May 13th, will be the next hearing for that. But there, as we talk about the budget, there is some things at the state level. I'm just going to throw a seed out there right now just to let it kind of grow with you as we see what the legislature is going to do. But as Senator Burley mentioned, the House is really pushing hard for tax cuts for citizens in Arizona, which we fully support. If the state has too much money, it should be back in the pockets of our citizens. But there's been a longstanding method of the way that cities and towns are funded through the state. So all of our citizens pay income tax of some sort at some point of their life. And those income taxes are then redistributed at a certain portion back to local communities so that we can pay for police, fire, parks and recreation, and all of those types of things, and be able to do those. With this tax cut, though, the state is, the current House version is taking the tax cut off the top, which will have a negative impact on our citizens, instead of making sure that the cities and towns get their portion of the income tax and then offer the tax cut. So it's a methodology that we disagree with on that. The impact to Lake Havasu City is 2.1 million. Per year that we would have to make up, and $2.1 million is a ton of money to us. When the state has $2 billion in surplus, they talk in the billions. We're like, no, please don't take our $2 million. We can't. We don't have that kind of wiggle room to do that. So just that's out there. We're hopeful that through the leadership of Senator Borelli and Representative Cobb and Representative Biasucci, that they'll make sure that cities and towns are whole first, and then offer the flat tax for all of our citizens, which we fully support that. And so one of the reasons why, of course, our position is the position that should prevail is because if they don't, we have a pretty solid tax structure in the state of Arizona that, folks pay income tax, they pay sales tax, they pay property tax at the different levels that they do. What will happen is, it's 2.1 million to Lake Havasu. It's multiple more millions to the larger cities. Then cities are going to have to start figuring something out. And if now we have different income tax structures in these different cities, it's going to make a hodgepodge of tax structure within our state of Arizona that just is not going to be easy to navigate when this has been ongoing and working since the 1970s. So I think that's just out there. That's just a seed. Hopefully it's going to not be an issue for us, but if it is, when we start talking about that, you'll be like, okay, I remember the seed being planted. So. And then the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on the budget is the American Rescue Act, or funds, that $2 trillion. So now at the federal level, like we talk millions, and we're so grateful to be able to provide those services to our citizens. States at the billions, and now the feds are at trillions. Like it's unimaginable. But they passed a nearly $2 trillion relief bill of some sort, and they allocated direct funding to cities and towns. So Lake Havasu City, based on our census data, will be eligible for about $13.3 million or so dollars over a 2-year period. So a couple of things I just want to address is that we don't know how the money can be spent. The guidance from Treasury has not been released yet. Once that is, then we'll have a better understanding, but we do know that it can't be used for paying down pension plans. So, there's pension liabilities that cannot be used for that, that's for sure. And the rest of it, we just don't know. It comes over a 2-year period, so about a little over $6 million over this year and next year. We do not have the money yet. We have not spent the money. We have not allocated the money to be spent because we'll have a public process. Now, the one thing that has happened is that the current budget that's being presented to council by staff includes those dollars because that's how municipal government works. You can't spend anything that has not been allocated for. So the money is in the budget, but not allocated to be spent on anything until we go through a public process for priorities. Now, there's lots of priorities. When you hear $13 million, the phone starts ringing. I need this, I need that, I need this. And so I keep telling everyone, we don't know how it can be used. We don't even have the money yet. When we do, we'll have a public process. Some people say, let's use it on infrastructure. I say, great. But there is an infrastructure bill supposedly coming behind this. So we have to see what that looks like before we do those types of things. So it's a lot of stuff that's out there. But I just wanted to get the true facts of what that money is, what we're doing with it, and it'll be a very open and public process when we get to it. 2 last things, well actually 3, because I wanted to touch on water real quick because it was an editorial in the paper today that the city should take a leadership role on water and water management. I agree with the newspaper, and we've done so. Councils prior to me and administrations prior to Jess had been had great foresight in ensuring that we had water allocations for Lake Havasu City and our residents to full build out. So we do have those water resources. There is an expected drought that's going to be called in August this year, which will have cuts to the water allocations. The immediate impacts to Lake Havasu City will not be there. We've already been very fantastic stewards of water and water conservation. You know, we don't have yards. You can only wash your car on certain days. I mean, we really have done some really fantastic things when it comes to water conservation, and we'll continue to do so. I am on the Mojave County Water Authority. I'm also the chairman of the Clean Colorado River Sustainability Coalition. We really are on the forefront of where water is at and what water is doing. I attended a presentation yesterday with water leaders in the state about groundwater management, so we can ensure that groundwater, which is not what Lake Havasu is reliant on, but it's still important that we manage all of our water resources. And then also talking about future of water, what water looks like and where and how we can get it. So we are focused on water and we'll continue to be focused on water. We're also focusing on workforce housing. Workforce housing is a struggle as property prices have increased, inventory has decreased. We don't have places for teachers and nurses and firefighters and police officers to live. And so we're really working hard on those fronts. We're working hard on broadband infrastructure so you can have connectivity when you are at home. We're pushing very hard in multiple different avenues and ways to push in that area. And then the final thing before we open up to your questions is the rate study. So the utility rate study, we've been talking about this for a really long time. I'll give a historical perspective, toss it over to Jess to give kind of where we are now, and then we'll open up questions for everybody. But before I do that, because I get scattered sometimes, I do want to recognize some important people that are with us today. We have Councilmember Lane is with us. Welcome. Councilmember Nancy Campbell, welcome. Thank you. Okay, so let's get to the rate study. Historically, the first quasi-government that McCulloch set up for Lake Havasu City was called the Irrigation and Drainage District, the IDD. That IDD was set up because McCulloch put a sod farm out on the island, which allowed him to create this irrigation district, but it became the first taxing entity in Lake Havasu to build our initial water and wastewater infrastructure. So he did that. It's been a tax on our tax bill forever. When the voters of Lake Havasu City voted to incorporate us in 1978, the IDD was set to expire by the vote of the people. However, the IDD had debt. It had debt for the initial infrastructure that was put in our community. It couldn't expire until that debt expired. So councils long before us refinanced that debt because it contributes about $5.7 million to the water fund, is to help pay for the water fund. The water fund is an enterprise fund. What an enterprise fund means is it's basically its own nonprofit. The ratepayers' revenue and the expenses to run the system at the end of the day should be zero. So that's how it's paid, and it's an enterprise fund. So that refinanced it, so $5.7 million in tax collections, property tax collections a year are on that. The debt is now at a point where it's going to expire. And we obviously did not want to refinance it, so we started engaging the community on what we could do. State law has changed since McCulloch did the IDD. They're no longer, it's no longer an option. So we thought, well, maybe we could just put something else on top of the current IDD, expand it for our expanded land use, and be able to lower that property tax rate, but still collect the $5.7 million to run the system. But state law doesn't allow that. So we went through a variety of different avenues. Jess and his team underwent a utility rate study and identified the cost for water, the cost for sewer over a 10-year period, what that would look like. So the IDD tax, your property tax is going to go away, so you have a savings there, but rates will go up on a stepped increase. For many residents, there are some of our low water users, which are about 52 or 3% won't see really an impact at all that use lower amounts of water, but that's a huge portion of our community. It also builds equity into the system. So currently we have winter quarterly averaging, which that quarterly averaging is based on the average of 3 of the 4 months in the winter, and that sets your sewer rates for the year. But some of our short-term rentals or our folks that aren't here in the winter, they're basically being monitored and measured on no water use. and then they're high water users when they are here, and so the rest of us are paying for the base system. So that builds equity into the full system where we're all paying our own fair share for the infrastructure piece, and then of course we pay based on our usage. So I'll turn it over to Jess to talk about kind of what the process of the utility rate study, where we go from here, and those types of things.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think it's important. You talk about the IDD going away, so that's a property tax assessment that's for property owners pay. That'll be going away. There'll be one more assessment as of July 1st, 2021. That goes away, and then we'll be back to a system where the more you use, the more you pay in terms of water service. So there's a lot of things to unravel. You talked about winter averaging. How many people in the audience know what winter averaging is? Yeah, so, and there's a handful, and that's essentially what that was. It happens right now, is we take 3 out of 4 months in the winter time frame. So like I think December, January, February, March, we throw out the 2 months in terms of high use and low use, and we use those 2 months to determine what your sewer rates are for the rest of the year. Very complex. We have residents that contact the city all the time to say, all right, when's my meter gonna be read? How much usage have I had? They're trying to identify the water usage of those in that time frame so that their sewer bill is less throughout the year. Some people understand this, some people don't. The good news for those that didn't raise their hands, all that is going away. So what we're going to do is we're looking at some options for council in terms of sewer, and really we're trying to simplify things, make things easy. So when residents contact the city, we can explain it in a way that's fair and equitable and so forth. And you hear different stories across the country in terms of historically Flint, Michigan, and other infrastructure. That's not going to happen in Lake Havasu City. So what we're doing right now is taking a really clean approach and some thought and concern in terms of where we want to be, not just with our water and sewer system today, but over the course of 10 years. So how do we ensure that we can take those things for granted when we turn on the faucet and flush the toilet and take a shower in the morning, those types of things. So we want to be thoughtful in that approach and making sure that we're there. And every dollar that is collected by the residents and ourselves as customers of the system will be put back into the water and wastewater system. So there's no profit mechanism. What we collect is what we put back into the system, and it's a nonprofit approach. So I think that's really what we're talking about, is making sure that as residents that we can take these things for granted and that we're set up for the long term in terms of where we're at for the system. And then just real quickly, lastly, is the last time rates have been touched in Lake Havasu City was 2009. So costs do increase. The cost of steel and pipe and equipment and resources and all those things do increase. So what we need to do is and the IDD is going away. So we need to take a close look at all these things to make sure that, again, we're set up for future years and looking pretty.
All right, and with that, we'll turn it out to our citizen, Jess. Councilmember Lane, I think, is going to run around with a microphone so the folks at home can hear the question as well.
So I was at the water meeting that you guys had a couple of months ago.
Here?
And for the people that weren't here, they had a chart of Havasu water rates and sewer rates versus other cities, and we're very competitive. We're very, very competitive. So I thank you for having our back on that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, no, thank you for that comment. Great. We should have actually led with that. Even with the proposed increases regionally and with our 10 comparable cities, we're still in the low end of the pack for the proposed new rates. And if you're interested in learning more about the water rates, all of that is on the Lake Havasu City website. So you can go to lhcaz.gov and see the PowerPoint that we're discussing, and there's also some video of that meeting, so you can take a look and see what was presented. The consultants will also be with us on May 11th at that council meeting for the rate hearing that we'll be discussing. Any other questions or?
Easy crowd today.
Very easy crowd. I was rushing through because I was like, we're not giving them enough time to answer questions or to ask questions. But
can you talk about the Riviera at all? What's going on with the Riviera?
Sure, yes. We actually just toured it last week. So they're doing some really good work. So Havasu Riviera, just by historical perspective, is the new neighborhood that's going on in the south end of our community. If you go up Highway 95 heading south, right before you get to Acoma, there's a traffic light there that doesn't let you do anything to turn right or left, depending on which way you're going. But that soon will be opening that intersection. There's a lot of heavy equipment back there moving a lot of dirt. Right now, they're on neighborhood number 5, getting that prepared in that subdivision. They've done all of the dirt work. The first neighborhood sold out already, 77 lots sold out, and so they're just moving along. At the end of the boulevard or the parkway is a new state park. It's a new kind of a state park. It's one that's developed with private dollars under a concession agreement with Arizona State Parks. And so that they're expected sometime this season to open up for the launching ability. And then next year, they'll have the next wave of amenities, which will include more courtesy docks, boat docks, marina facilities. And then in a subsequent year, there would be a restaurant, general store, and then in a subsequent phase would be concierge level services where you might store your boat in that facility. You call them up and say, I'll be arriving at so-and-so time. They'll have taken your boat out, have it in the water, ice it in the cooler, and all of those types of things. So that's progressing along very, very nicely. All of the road and parking lot improvements at that state park are pretty much done. They're getting ready to do the landscaping, lighting, all of those types of things. And just, I know you've been talking a lot about the neighborhoods and kind of those pieces, so if you want to maybe give an update on building permits that are pulled or any of those types of things.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of activity, and I think it's important to know that the city made some promises and made some investments in that area, and we've fully fulfilled those promises and those commitments for that area, as far as the infrastructure, the road, the traffic signal, all those things that you'll see once that area gets opened up. So now the onus is on the developer and to fulfill commitments that are out there, and those things are occurring. There's a lot of dollars going in that area that you're going to see in infrastructure and concrete and parking lots and boat launches and ramps and so forth. But all that is on the developer. So we're got our eyes glued and trying to identify updates so we can update the public and so forth. But lots of lot sales are occurring out in that area. Lots of building permits are being pulled, and lots of activity is occurring in that area. So.
Yeah, and the great news is on the development agreement for what the developer was supposed to pay back to the city. It was a 20-year agreement, but under Jess's guidance and leadership, we've been paid back in full now with those robust lot sales. So, yeah, really exciting. So it's good. Yes, sir. Oh, actually, Councilmember Lane will get the microphone to you.
The state park down there, if I launch at Windsor with my annual pass, can we use that launch ramp too? Or is it just for there?
Yeah, so State Parks actually was just here last week as part of those discussions. Those discussions are ongoing. So the answer right now is unknown, but I would predict, now this is just a prediction, that the answer is no. That you will be able to buy some sort of annual pass to the new state park that would be used in specific just at that facility. And then your other statewide pass would be able to be used at all other state parks throughout the system. And the reason why is that, again, it's private money that built it. And so through that concession agreement, they need to be able to recoup their monies. Just from an operational standpoint, I'm a boater, and I'm not, I don't choose different boat facilities. I'm pretty much a creature of habit, and I think most others are as well. I launch at the same place, and I'm going to continue to do that. So wherever that is, I would buy a state pass that may.
Well, I was thinking more of the people who live on the far south side,
Yeah, you can absolutely buy a pass there instead of buying a statewide. If you only use it to go to Windsor, for example, now, and you don't go to the other state parks throughout the state, or you don't go down to Buckskin or any of that, then it might make more sense for you to buy the one for Riviera. Again, those are all predictions that I just made. So that's not to say how it's going to be. That's just kind of how I predict it to be. So, yeah, right. The mayor said, yes, that's right. It was a prediction. I said it at the front. I said in the middle and the end of that conversation. So that more to come on that. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, we'll be here afterwards. Before we say goodbye, though, I would like to welcome back and say a big thank you to Bill and Marilyn They volunteer their time for us. You don't see him because he's behind the camera. And so thank you so much. It's great to see you, Bill, and welcome back. He helps make sure on a volunteer basis that these productions are recorded and able to be seen and viewed by all of our citizens, so we're very grateful for you. Obviously, Jerry behind the scenes making all of the social media stuff work, and Steve, the other gentleman on the camera. Thank you for doing that. Thank you to all of you for being here this morning. It's a great honor and pleasure to serve as your mayor. If we can be of any assistance, we'll stay afterwards and answer any additional questions, but we'll see you at Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager in June, first Friday in June. So take care and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.